Ladies and gentlemen, of course, we are here to review a movie tonight on this podcast. But if you listen to this episode backwards, it might all make sense to you. There's hidden meanings in there.
What was that?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Two Peas on a Podcast, where we review the latest and sometimes greatest movies every week, and sometimes under the silver lake. Gerald here with you. Nick, how are you, my man?
I'm trying to mimic his look from audio audience. This is doing nothing for you, but I'm really trying. Am I capturing his smoky mystique in this one?
It's doing something for me. I'm gonna give advantage Garfield, but it was doing something for me though.
Man.
It was a valiant effort.
Never. Every time I try to best Andrew Garfield, he thwarts me. Every
I know,
single
that bastard.
time. It's good to be here, baby. Bastard. It's good to be back for another week of the Peas.
Yeah, man.
What's up, buddy?
Your New York Giants came back and won today as we're recording. Yeah, look at that.
Go big blue,
Sports,
baby.
am I right? Sports.
Their biggest comeback since 1949, Gerald.
Oh my God, was it? I didn't even know that.
Their biggest comeback since 1949. Danny Dimes out there slinging tutties, man. It was good. Sorry, Yaney. Sorry, I told you earlier this morning. You didn't want to listen to me.
Yeah, well, he never does. Yanny's not a good listener.
That is true. Now I double won't watch Angels with the Dirty Face. It's just for that one.
Yanny, we love you, patron of the show. We're just kidding.
Yeah, we know.
Not about the Angels with Dirty Faces part, though. We're definitely not going to watch that.
No.
All right. Look, Nick, we spun the wheel a few weeks ago because we knew we were going to have a couple weeks where we had to kind of have filler episodes. Wasn't a lot going on in the theater and whatever. So this is one of those weeks we spun the wheel and we got a patron pick, Mr. Dan Brennick, patron extraordinaire and producer of the show, actually. And he chose Under the Silver Lake from 2018, which will be the Roulette retro review that we'll be covering tonight. I know it's your first time watching it, and this was my third rewatch, which I actually broke up into 3 separate parts as I rewatched it. We'll talk a little bit about that when we get into the review. But before we get there, Nick, what do we do every week, man? Roll the freaking audio.
You gotta ask yourself a question.
I have a lot of questions. Number one, how dare you?
God,
How
I love that.
Dare you?
God, I love that.
How dare you just in general?
Yeah, just Kelly Kapoor.
Yeah.
Well, one big question. So every week we come up with a question for each other, Nick, that is somewhat related to the movie or inspired by the movie that we are reviewing. Do you want to go first? I think you went first last week, but I don't really care because I'm a nice person. So whatever you'd like to do.
I got one for you, baby.
Hit me with it.
What zany conspiracy theory do you believe, if any? Yeah, throwing it right down, baby. Throwing it right down.
So I don't spend a ton of time pondering. There's probably one that's bigger, but the JFK conspiracy has always been something that I've firmly believed that the government knew what was going on there, or at least they were hiding it after the fact. And that whole conspiracy I've just always bought into it. I've never bought into the idea that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone and killed JFK, and that was it. I just feel like there's too much other shit going on, and Oliver Stone's JFK in the 90s was one of my favorite movies ever, so that probably has a lot to do with it because that kind of got, implanted in my mind and all these different theories that got thrown around. But I would say the JFK conspiracy is one that I'm pretty confident that there was a lot more going on there.
Okay. I mean, X-Men Days of Future Past already told us it was Magneto. He curved the bullet into him. I don't know why it's a big conspiracy to you, G. I don't have an answer to that one because I don't. Because of, we'll talk a lot about this movie in the review, of course, but this movie just kind of shifted my thinking into that kind of mindset, and I was just curious to know if there was any kind of big conspiracies out there that you were like a subscriber to. Alternately, I just want to mention this really quick. It's just a really weird coincidence. I just got a YouTube notification that Two Peas on a Podcast has released a Bottoms movie review on YouTube.
Oh wow!
So I just in case you wanted to check that out after this. It's over there.
Just got that?
I just got a push notification for it from YouTube, man. It's right there.
Wow, they're really.
So I've already watched it too, which is the weirder part.
They're really killing it with their timely. Yeah, wow. Thanks, YouTube. Wow, you're really helping us out.
Yeah, gotta love.
Well, maybe people will get notified of Bottoms like a week after this episode comes out. Who knows? All right, I got one for you, man. So. Ooh. Mine is inspired by Silver Lake as well. So this is somewhat of a, noir kind of detective and, like mystery thriller vibes. So it kind of got me thinking of like mysterious goings on that we've experienced in our lives. So I wanted to ask you if there's anything in popular culture that was never solved, a crime or a whodunit in the world, and you would wish you knew what happened if it could be solved right now, and you woke up tomorrow and they were like, this is what really happened, what would it be?
The Mary Celeste. I had to think of the name of it for just a second there. It took me just a second. It's like this weird boat it's like this weird boat from like the 1800s that all of a sudden like the whole crew disappeared and no one knows why. Just like a super cool like maritime mystery. It's one of those things that's always like
a Bermuda Triangle type deal.
No, it was like I forget where it was even I think it was headed to Africa or something. I don't even know. I have no idea.
That's crazy.
Yeah, the whole crew just disappeared. They have no idea what happened to them. No idea where they went. All this stuff was like undisturbed, like all their belongings and like everything was still on the boat. So it's just super weird. They just disappeared. Probably in an alternate dimension, hanging out with like vampires on the Demeter or something.
Well, ask Brad about that. Has that ever been covered in popular culture? I don't know about that. I'm not familiar with that story.
I'm pretty sure there's been something about it or something. Hang on. I'm going to find out now.
Mary Celeste.
The Google will tell me.
Mary Celeste.
Google will tell me. There was a movie in 1935 about it starring Bela Lugosi. There you go.
Wow. Oh, wow.
No, so maybe not a pop culture-y thing. I don't know. For some reason, as soon as you said
that's
it,
really
bam,
weird,
snapped
though,
into
if you
my
think
head.
about
it. Just appeared in my head, yeah.
Yeah, that's really weird if you think about it. That's like that flight a few years ago that just like went off the radar and nobody knew what happened to it. It's just it's weird shit, man. So I got one for me because this was such a huge case. And it was one of the very first cases along with like O.J. Simpson in the 90s where I was like every day, like, do they have any updates? What did they find? What evidence has been presented? You know what I mean? Like I always wanted to know, to get to the bottom of it, and they never did. And to this day, it's unsolved. And that's the murder, or I guess I should say disappearance of John Benet Ramsey.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a good one, man.
I mean, I just like, that just wrecked me because that was such a prominent time in my life. And like I said, I was just checking it every day. Like, what's going on with this? Did they find the dude who did it? And then like, I don't know if you remember, but like 10 years later, somebody like confessed to it and they arrested him at the airport. And then it turns out that was a hoax and he didn't really do it. And it just went back to square one. And like and they thought the parents were involved and to this day, we don't know. I mean, 30 something years later, it's such a crazy story and such a weird, really heartbreaking, unsolved mystery. And I mean, I'm not even joking when I say this, that to this day, it kind of haunts me that they don't know what happened to that little girl. It's just crazy.
That's a good one, man. That's a really, really good one. One of those kind of enduring modern day mysteries. Is mine not modern enough for you, G? I think
1935 movie. I mean, what did this happen in the fucking 1910s?
Definitely
I mean,
pop culturally relevant. We're good. I got this. Nailed it. Boom.
All right.
Understood the assignment from the jump, baby.
All right, look, guys, I want to tell anybody listening or watching on YouTube, if you want to get involved, me and Nick frequently dive into the patron picks. So we spin the wheel, which we're going to be doing at the end of this episode as well for next week. And if you are a patron of the show, you can select a movie for us to watch. That is what we are doing this week in what we call the Roulette Retro Review. And it's for 2018's Under the Silver Lake. Nick, I know you have the audio sound drop ready.
Nope.
We're going to give our early score reveal before we get into the discussion.
Damn it, this always happens. I think I'm going to score and then I never score. It's not fair.
All right. Thank you, Beavis, or Butthead, whoever that was.
That's Beavis. Come on.
I said Beavis, but
Don't
then I thought
pretend
maybe I was
like
wrong.
you don't know who it is.
Before we give this score reveal, before we give it, Nick, all right, out of 10, we don't tell each other our scores up front. So our individual scores out of 10, and then we kind of talk about why it made that score for us. This is Nick's first viewing of this movie. He's never seen it before, so this is his first time watch score. This is my third watch. I hated this movie on my first watch, which is notoriously out there. Everybody that knows me knows that. Second watch, I kind of like found some stuff that kind of like I latched onto. This is my third watch. So let's do it, man. Out of 10, you ready? You count us in and we'll reveal it here.
1, 2, 7, 5. 7 out of 10, baby.
6 out of 10 from me. You move it. That makes it so hard to video edit that, but that's fine. Whatever. Who cares? 6 out of 10 from me. 7 out of 10 from Nick. Another 6.5. That's what we got last week.
Whoa, hang on. Now you're going to disrupt the entire entire power balance of the podcast is going to be shifted here if you start remembering how to do basic first grade mathematics.
Well, no, remain calm. It's just because it's the exact score.
You just remembered it. Okay.
I copy pasted it over.
It's that sounds familiar.
Let's see. Let me go to the synopsis real quick on Letterboxd. For Under the Silver Lake from 2018, directed by David Robert Mitchell. Young and disenchanted Sam meets a mysterious and beautiful woman who's swimming in his building's pool one night. When she suddenly vanishes the next morning, Sam embarks on a surreal quest across LA to decode the secret behind her disappearance, leading him into the murkiest depths of mystery, scandal, and conspiracy. Under the Silver Lake, starring Andrew Garfield, Riley Keough, Topher Grace, and a host of others. All right, man. First time watch for you. I think Dan, who chose this movie, and everyone else is probably waiting to hear really what you think, because I've really had a love-hate relationship with this movie the last few years. Under the Silver Lake, spoiler-free, general thoughts, buddy.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I'm more interested in how you hated it the first time and have come around on it since. I will definitely say that it's a film that intrigued me. It's a film that I really want to watch again, having kind of gone through the entire experience. So now I know what to expect for it. So now I can maybe watch it a little bit differently in subsequent viewings. I'm really, really intrigued to do that. I think this is not a character, and I'm very much a character. I'm a character writer. Like in all my writing, character is very important to me. In films I watch, typically I really, really will gravitate toward and really love films that have strong, characters with really, really well realized emotional arcs or character journeys, character arcs. There's none of that here. There's literally none of that here. This is not a character movie whatsoever. Most of the characters in this film don't even have names. They're generic placeholders. Like Topher Grace's character is Bar Buddy. He doesn't even have a name. Most of the characters in the film just aren't even real characters. So you kind of can't approach it from that perspective. And I think once you do that, once you kind of let go of this idea of what you think this movie should be, and just kind of let it happen to you, let it kind of unfold in front of you. I mean, it's gonna paint a different picture for everybody that watches it, but I think the most important thing to me, and we'll talk more about it in spoilers and stuff like that as we kind of connect the dots, but I think it's really a movie about the depths that people will go to in order to validate their ideas, specifically conspiracy kind of theory ideas, the way, and this came out in 2018, so this came out before COVID, before COVID's a hoax, and anti-masking and all these different things that you can even throw on top of this pile even harder. I really, really think it's interesting that this movie came before that, but this is especially more so seeing this for the first time in a modern sensibility. how poignant that still is, but it's just kind of the lengths that we will go to in order to justify like our own paranoia, like to justify our own kind of conspiracy like mindset. Like if we're convinced of something, we will go to literally any lengths to justify it. We will go to any lengths to kind of explain it or justify it or connect whatever dots, no matter how tenuous they may be, in our heads in order to reach the conclusion that we want. I think that it's a fascinating study in the unreliable narrator in terms of Andrew Garfield's character. It's like it's entirely from his point of view. I don't think it shifts out of his point of view at all during the entire film.
No.
So it's like, I mean, I think he's a very, very unreliable narrator. There's a lot that Mitchell does not tell us very specifically about him or about anything else that's going on in this film. And I think that kind of leaves a lot of room around the edges of the canvas for the viewer to kind of start painting in their own things.
Yeah, from a spoiler-free perspective, I agree with a lot of what you said. I'll just say that this movie, I think, was made, and I mean that from a cumulative perspective, talking about directing, the performances even in the film, the writing, obviously. It was made from the outset with a perspective that required a lot from the viewer. It required, honestly, multiple viewings of the movie. It wasn't something you would sit down in one viewing and go, okay, that's that, that's this. I know that. I checked this box. I mean, you have to kind of like think about what you watched and come back to kind of study different things that you might be questioning. And that's why the movie's grown on me a little bit over time, because the first time I watched it was way back in probably 2019-ish or so. I didn't know what the hell was going on. Like, this movie tackles a lot of different perspectives. I mean, it's dealing with homelessness, it's dealing with misogyny, it's dealing with, this idea of wanting to live out our dream. And we're kind of, our conduit for that in this movie is Sam in Hollywood. And he's probably there because he thought he could be an actor or a writer or, whatever his path was. And that didn't really work out for him. So he's just kind of playing video games and facing eviction, but people go to LA for that reason. So it just has so many different things that it's kind of juggling, And what's interesting, and it actually came up in the fan feedback, which we'll get to at the end of the episode, but when you start to dissect this movie and you start to watch interviews with Mitchell and with the cast, and you see, I saw a really, really good YouTube video today of somebody that broke this down when they watched it and kind of the conspiracies built into it. It starts to like you gain a great respect and appreciation for the project. But what I'm kind of grading it on tonight, and what I want to kind of talk to you about, is my initial kind of like interpretation of it as a movie lover. And I can't grade. In other words, I can't say, oh, well, I went and studied, all this other shit, and now I understand it. And now it's like, I love it. I don't want to do it like that, because the first couple of times I watched this, I didn't know what I was watching. And to keep it spoiler free, I'll just say that initially, and then we can get into spoilers. But I just, I didn't understand what the filmmaker wanted me to kind of focus on in this movie, because I felt like there was a lot of different paths that as a viewer you can go down and you can really hone in on. And it's kind of all over the place for me because of that. There's a lot of things that I absolutely adore in this movie that I would give a 10 out of 10 to. We'll get into it, but I mean, there's specific scenes of this movie that I freaking love. Like, I could watch the particular scenes on repeat. But then there's other parts of this movie that I just feel like, okay, you're fucking with me. Like, you're trying to confuse me, and mission accomplished. I'm confused. Like, I don't know what's happening. And I get lost a little bit. So we can peel back the spoilers if you want to, Nick. Going forward, guys, anything that we discuss about Under the Silver Lake will contain spoilers. If you have not seen this movie, come back after you see it or fast forward to the end of the episode. So, Nick, what as a first-time viewer, do you kind of appreciate what I'm saying there, or did you think this film had kind of like a singular narrative?
I well, it's kind of like go back to my just initial thoughts on the movie. I think you have to realize, and I think you have to get into the perspective of Sam as a really, really unreliable narrator. And what I mean by that is there are numerous times in this movie that he is drugged in some way, shape, or form, where all these things are happening to him that he can't explain. I think that there are all these different things. Like he becomes convinced of an idea. And then what I believe the film does, and again, this is just my interpretation of it, but the entire film is him trying to reach that end and trying to justify that end by any means. That's what I mean. And I think the confusing parts of the film, and I think the parts of it that could kind of come out of left field are almost like in a way like these different elements of it that are just entering his mind, and he's trying to take them and he's trying to weave them to fit into this kind of conspiracy mindset he has, because he's so convinced that this girl who he literally sees once and who like lived downstairs from him and then moves out the next day, and like he becomes convinced of this massive conspiracy about her. Like it's just the whole thing is, I mean, there's an argument I definitely think to be made for none of this really actually ever happened, and this is just him on some like massive like drugged out fever dream kind of different thing. I mean, there's all sorts of different loose threads that never get picked back up, that we are just kind of left to wonder, was it in Sam's head? Was this an actual thing that like really actually happened? Like did Millicent really die? Like, we don't really know because the film never follows up on it. The owl face, naked lady, do we really have any idea? Like, was that actually a real person? Because we never ever get that like thread picked up or anything like that again.
You're
and
right.
Then, like, Millicent dying in the pose of like his favorite Playboy, like that he, masturbated to for the first time. Like all these kind of different things. It's like it plays out to me like him creating his own narrative to reach this goal of like figuring out what happened to this girl that he was hot for, like plain and simple. I really think that that's the story it's trying to take you on.
Yeah, and the interesting thing too, to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, is that the character of Sarah, portrayed by Riley Keough here, phenomenally, by the way, I freaking love her in this movie. I didn't even know this, but modeled after Marilyn Monroe, and there's some scenes in the movie that are literally recreations of scenes from Marilyn Monroe movies, with her in the swimming pool with her leg up on the ledge is shot for shot a Marilyn Monroe remake. And then the same thing with the light on her eyes when he meets her outside of her apartment.
Yeah.
And a lot of those things are taken directly from Marilyn Monroe films and like recreated with Riley Keough in this movie. So not knowing that when you watch it, it might not have as big of an impact, but obviously I think Sarah's real in this movie, but I see her also as a caricature of like his dream girl, this kind of like fantasy.
Yeah, this is a fantasy that he's projecting.
Chasing.
Based on like, again, like let's like just like you just said, like paint that into like even further. Like that's a justification from like all these different Marilyn Monroe movies he sees, and then he sees this like literally perfect girl, and then he starts painting her into these fantasies in which he sees her like in that light. Like I said, again, that's why tie that back to Millicent. Like all of a sudden Millicent gets shot and like dies in the perfect pose that models after the Playboy that like was his like favorite Playboy. Right. I mean, like I said, you have to buy into the idea that you have to know from the get-go that Sam is an extraordinarily unreliable narrator. Extraordinarily. And not genuinely like the most stable person, that we've really, really ever seen. We know he's jobless. We know he's
wayward.
Wayward's another good word for it. We know, he's about to be evicted. We know he's probably under a lot of different stress. Maybe he's depressed. Maybe he's XYZ. Like, the film's just going to give us little clues of little different things. But things that we know, like he attends the one party and he eats the whole cookie, which is laced with something because he has this tripped out moment. At the end of the movie, like he drinks that weird tea and he basically passes out and is like slurring his words and all these different things. Like I really think a lot of this is like him, like, because it's not enough for him, and I read some critiques of this film. I don't usually even do this when I watch movies too, but like I read some reactions to this film, and I read like, you know, people thinking that this was like a kind of dissection of toxic masculinity, or like in a kind of like an attack on like toxic masculinity, and it kind of is in a way if you think about it, because it's really deconstructing this idea of like there's a girl that just like didn't call him back, or like said to come back tomorrow, but then she left for whatever reason, and he invents this grand conspiracy to make up a reason why she wouldn't want to talk to him, because of course she would want to talk to him, because why wouldn't she? And like I said, I feel like that's a direct jab at toxic masculinity.
Yeah, that's why the landlord is one of my favorite. The landlord's one of my favorite characters in this movie, because he's like rooted in
Kevin
reality.
Lochtell from Mesa Verde Bank. Yes.
Yeah. He's like, maybe she doesn't like you. I don't like you. You know, like maybe she doesn't want to be with somebody to pay their rent. You know.
Yeah, like that's kind of the thing that it makes me think of, is like is thinking about. Just thinking about like Sam in that kind of way, like, you know, I mean, like he has like this, you know, really attractive girl that just comes over to his apartment and like brings like leftovers, and then the next scene they're, you know, they're screwing on the bed, like, you know, watching tennis or whatever, and then the news report about like the missing dude comes up, and they're just sitting there.
That's
like,
when he climaxes too, by the
going
way, which was
whatever else, and then, you know, there's the whole other scene where like he's at the party after he eats like the drugged out cookie, and the girl's like, you know, saying, oh, you know, wanting to go screw him or whatever, and he's like, sure, let's go, and then he has this like weird trip out episode with the cookie and stuff like that. Like, I mean, like I said, I really, honest to God, I feel like a lot of this film is just. And the film doesn't give us that moment. Like, it's up to you to determine it. Really, it doesn't give us that moment of Sam waking up to reality or whatever. So if you want to determine, yes, maybe he is constructing this entire conspiracy in his whole mind, or like, no, this is all really happening to him and in front of him, and he's just trying to like grasp onto this whirlwind, like, it was just this girl that moved out, and all of a sudden I'm involved in this like massive conspiracy of like people being buried in concrete bunkers with 3 wives and like all this weird stuff. And then like, you know, I think
it's a commentary on the Hollywood elite as well. So
I mean, it's a commentary on a lot of things, probably.
It really is, but I mean, I don't know. I guess I took it at face value for the general kind of like path that we followed in the movie, but a lot of things that were in the movie were from his kind of drugged out mental state, if you will. So kind of a mixture, kind of a lot of what you're saying, but a lot of like reality as well. Like, you know, there's a lot of scenes where, you know, he'll encounter people, including Sarah, and they're barking like dogs. And, you know, beware of the dog killer is a through line throughout the whole movie. So there's a lot of like kind of surreal, abstract things that happen within his reality that obviously don't really happen in the real world. But I did, for the most part, think that this movie went from point A to point Z in reality, with a lot of those other things kind of mixed in, where there was like dreamlike, or it was him imagining it, or whatever. But at the end of the day, we do get to the end where we see the Hollywood elite, and we see these rich people who are creating this kind of cult, basically this cult-like kind of phenomenon where they disappear under the ground, and they eventually, you know, ascend to whatever they think the next level of, you know, nirvana is, which was interesting too, that the Kurt Cobain poster was always over his bed, and they mentioned the Kurt Cobain guitar, and the guy plays Smells Like Teen Spirit on the piano. And so you get a lot of references to Nirvana and ascending. And, you know, I'm interested that you gave it a 7, because I feel like we have similar kind of like brain teasers with this movie, where we kind of scratch our heads a little bit. And that's, for me, that's on 3 viewings. So I'm still scratching my head. I'm not a smart guy, you know what I mean? But I'm still going, what?
What was your initial score of it? That's what I want to know. What was your initial score, and why did it come up?
Out of 10, well, because Dan loves it. and the patron that picked this for us.
That would be more of an incentive for you to lower the score, because I know it's Dan, so you just want to draw his ire.
You mean why did the score come up? I thought you meant why.
Yeah, what was your initial score, and why did you rate? Like when you first watched this movie, you said you hated it. What was your initial score, and why is it a 6 now?
My initial score out of 10 would have probably been like a 4 or like a 4.5.
So why is it a 6 now? Why did it jump up? What about it improved for you on subsequent rewatches? Besides Dan loving it.
No, fuck Dan. That's what I was talking about. That's what I was talking about in the intro, is that it's interesting because this movie, I feel like, and of course I don't know because Mitchell's been very hush-hush on it, but I feel like this movie was made with the intention of the more you understand it, the more you will like it. And, the more times you see it and you soak in more information, the more it will make sense to you. And that's been the case for me. The first time I saw this movie, I didn't see it in the theater. I saw it at home on like Amazon Prime or something like that. I was in agony. I was like, I don't know what's happening. I'm confused. I felt stupid. I just didn't know what was going on. I really didn't. And even when we got to the climax and we got to the end of the movie, and it kind of ends with him at the lady with the parrot, that lives across from him, and even that makes a little more sense to me now because, he was facing eviction and he saw a way to kind of like continue to live in this reality that he kind of created by just kind of shacking up with her. And he kind of just goes over there and kind of becomes her dog in a way, her pet, if you will, which was kind of a theme throughout the movie for other things. So even that makes a little more sense to me. But the first time I watched it, I just didn't get it. Frankly, that's the best way I can put it. But if I watched this movie 100 times, I would probably know a little something more each time I watched it. And I think that it somewhat elicits like a respect from me as a film lover to the filmmaker and to everybody involved to be like, okay, that was really intense that you dove in that deep to put in those hidden messages and to kind of connect those dots, because the general audience and the regular filmmaker, or film viewer, which I was on the first time, they're gonna probably leave the theater, honestly. Really, you're gonna have to commit to kind of, like you said, buying in and kind of learning what we're supposed to take away from the movie. Which honestly, I don't know if the filmmaker even knows that. I think he's leaving it up to us. And people have asked him straight out, by the way. I don't know if you're watching that stuff on YouTube, but
no, I didn't watch any of this stuff with him.
I looked up a couple and they asked him straight up, dude, like, who's the dog killer? What's the mystery? And he just won't talk about it. He purposely will not give any indication.
It's ours now. It's not his anymore. It's ours now. And you're going to draw your conclusions. I'm going to draw mine. Like, I disagree completely with your assessment that most of it happens in reality. I think 90% of it is a construct in his head. I think he's
Do you think there's a cult under Hollywood? No. You don't think that?
I think he constructed this entire like massive elaborate conspiracy to figure out why a girl wouldn't talk to him. The whole answer to the whole thing is this cipher that was in this mysterious cereal box and in a Nintendo Power magazine that he happened to have as an apartment at that time. Like, no, get out of here. Like, no. And then he goes to visit for this mysterious songwriter after he beats up Jesus, which, again, no repercussions. It's never mentioned again. It's another loose thread. He goes to this songwriter who, like, tells him, basically feeds to him. He goes and he has these revelatory experiences that basically feed to him. And, again, he's at this party. And what does he do right before he goes to beat up Jesus? Drinks down this cocktail. Who knows? Was it laced with something? He gets drugged 30 other times in this movie. Like, no, I think he concocts this conspiracy. I think he wants to believe this conspiracy so bad that he weaves this tale to justify it. Like, all of a sudden, like, oh yeah, he makes up this whole thing. It's like, oh, it's a map of the first Legend of Zelda game, and this means this, and then he finds the map in the cereal box, and like all these. No,
but because, see, I agree with you that I think he's fabricating a lot of that stuff or being drugged out and thinking it. But I think that that's happening within the construct of the narrative of the movie, though. Or are you saying it's all just us witnessing what he's thinking?
Yeah. I think it's from his point of view, but I think he's entirely an unreliable narrator. I don't think any of this stuff really happens. Like I really don't. Like I feel like it's okay. I feel like part of it probably happens. Like probably having sex with the actress like at the beginning of the movie when she brings him sushi probably happens. Having sex with the older lady with the parrot like across the way probably happens. And there's probably different little snippets of different things that happen here. But like I said, think of the different loose threads in this movie that are never picked up again. The songwriter that he beats to death with Kurt Cobain's guitar. Loose thread. Right. Never picked up again. He beats up Jesus. He beats up like a rock star at this party. Loose thread, completely dropped. It never comes up again or anything like that. The girl, the daughter of the billionaire, when they're out swimming in the lake, gets shot dead, poses like the Playboy thing. Literally a thread that's never picked up again. Like all these different little things. And then, like I said, he has all the answers right there. Like, he's able to decode the song just by listening to it and figuring out whatever code. Like and of course because he has the cereal box and like all this thing, the naked owl lady, like whatever. Again, all these different threads because they no longer serve the narrative in his head. Like he doesn't need them anymore as a detail, and that's why he drops them. That's why they just disappear from the movie.
Sure, no, I get it. I get what you're saying, and that makes it even a little more intriguing for my next watch, to be honest, because I've never thought that the whole thing was like in his head, but that could be. So basically, when he's with Topher Grace, that's real, probably.
I would say simple stuff like that is real, like just those simple interactions and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I mean, there's probably little details like, and I'd have to really granted, I only watched this today, but I have to sit and ruminate on like the fact that like they're playing the original Mario, but not only are they playing the original Mario, they're playing the -1 world. Like they're not even playing like the original, and they're playing it on an original NES too. So like they're not even playing like the normal levels. Like they deliberately, like that was a deliberate choice to play the -1 world, which is just this kind of glitch that like, you have to jump backwards into a block 1,000 times to move through the block. And it's like a glitch in the game that really shouldn't exist, you could even literally take that and say, is he jumping backwards through a block and parsing himself into this reality that doesn't really exist? That's really not a part of the main of the main journey of life, but he jumps himself into this -1 world or whatever. Like there's 1,000 different threads you could pick up about this film, and that's why I think it's fascinating. Like I said, I feel like it's complete bumpkins. Like the same thing. Which with one of the greatest scenes that I laughed so hard when it happened was like he just straight up like cold cocks that kid who keys his car.
Oh yeah,
and the thing once again he beats the ever loving snot out of 2 kids. The plot thread disappears. The plot thread completely disappears in a normal movie, in a normal story where any of these different narrative threads were important, there'd be some kind of follow-up. Like somebody'd find him, somebody'd track this kind of thing down, but none of it ever does. None of these things ever come back to him. Any of these people that he kills, any of the different things that he does, none of this stuff ever comes back to him because none of it ever actually really happens. At least that's what I think about.
Hey, I'm not going to argue with it. I mean, it makes sense.
I think it's complete bupkis, and I mean, like really. And here's the other thing. Okay, these billionaires are buried with 3 wives in these concrete boxes way deep below the earth, and they just get to have this like massive orgy until they run out of food and die. But they can't get out of the rooms, but they also can call out on a video phone. Like there's just things about it that don't make sense, that don't add up. And I think they don't add up because I don't think he has figured out a way to like justify that part of the conspiracy in his head.
Can I ask you, do you think there was ever a dog killer in this movie? Maybe. Or even further, do you think it was him?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'd have to watch again and try to like comb through and find clues and see if I could necessarily figure that out. I don't. So I don't know.
I think you and I are somewhat toe to toe in our comprehension of the film. Although until you started talking about it being a 90% fabrication, I was more under the impression of like maybe like a 20% fabrication, and I was thinking like, yeah, Sam kind of haphazardly fell upon these different facts after he met the author that was writing the Under the Silver Lake, Pulp Fiction articles and all that stuff. And he kind of found these different clues kind of like by accident and just kind of fumbled upon them. And it led him down the path that, we were watching as the viewer, where he ultimately found Sarah with this cult, and that's where she went. But I also think, and I agree with you and a lot of other people that think this, that it does embrace that theme of toxic masculinity and misogyny and his kind of desire and need to answer the question, like, why wouldn't this girl want a second date with me? Which is really the heart of the whole movie. I mean, honestly, whether it's real or whether it's not, this movie would not have even gotten past the first 20 minutes if he hadn't exhibited those type of male kind of prejudices or personality that we've gotten used to in recent memory. So I don't know, man. Honestly, I'm super excited that you gave that analysis, because that gives me something else to think about as I ponder this movie, and if I ever watch it again, to kind of think about, because I thought it was a real story, and just every once in a while it would just do crazy shit that'd be like, oh, okay, well, he's on drugs, or he's just imagining that.
Yeah, I don't think so at all. I think
that's
that
interesting.
Rather than watch the movie from this perspective of him cracking this code and discovering this massive conspiracy, I really started to view it as, because every different plot thread that doesn't get pegged back up, I started asking myself why. I'm like, why did we never get any repercussions for what he did to the kids? Why did we never get any repercussions for XYZ different things that he does? And
Right.
That's kind of when I started to reach that thing. It's not him discovering this conspiracy, and it's not him uncovering different layers in this conspiracy or whatever. It's him constructing it. It's him trying to figure out how to utilize the world around him, utilize the things in the world around him to create it.
And, it's kind of impressive too that a film can really elicit these types of conversations, because
which is what I find so fascinating about it. That's why I can't give it a failing grade.
Yeah, even hearing you saying it, it's like one of those things where it's like, whether I agree with you or not, it's just fascinating to ponder and to think about, and we don't really know. We'll never really know.
We don't really know,
impressive.
but it's one of those things where I think it's a film that I don't think you have to watch it twice. I don't think you have to watch any film twice, to be 100% honest about it. But I think it's a film that if you choose to, it will reward you, because it'll probably open up different ways for you to explore it narratively. It'll probably open up different ways for you to kind of try to figure out like more and more of those like different things.
And what's funny too is, if you're right, and if he's kind of imagining the whole movie basically, that all that's pointless, because none of it's really happening anyway. But you're in this loop as the viewer.
It's real to him,
to pick out these clues.
And he's our narrator, whether he's reliable or not. It's real to him,
right?
And so you just have to go along with the ride for him. Think of like Fight Club. We obviously have like Tyler Durden is like just this alternate personality for the narrator. So like all these different things that we're seeing, like it's deliberately being fed to us from an unreliable point of view until we learn the truth at the end of it. Only this movie, there's no truth. There's no massive revelation at the end. We just have to fill in that blank ourselves. Did all this really happen? Is he truly cuckoo bananas? Did he do all these different crazy things? Did he uncover this massive super crazy conspiracy and blah 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 and all that different kind of stuff? Or was he just someone who loved to like ogle naked women and couldn't come up with this justification for him, like this girl just up and ditching him or whatever, like all these different little things,
So as we wrap up, I just want to ask you real quick. So do you want to watch this again?
I'm sure I probably will. I don't have a ton of time to rewatch a whole lot of stuff, so Lord knows when I'll ever get to it, but I definitely would. I would for sure watch it again.
I feel like this movie is one of those that's like, if you kind of are scratching your head, then you're going to be like, I need to see what did I miss, and you need to go back and watch it. And that's what happened with me. And I do gain a little more appreciation for it every time I watch it, which I'm not just saying that because
Dan, keep recommending it. He'll get it to a 10, baby. Just keep recommending it.
But I feel like you do. Yeah, I feel like you do pick up a little more appreciation for it as you go on. So
yeah.
Under the Silver Lake, thank you, Dan, and patrons for the recommends this week. A 6 from me, a 7 from Nick, and that puts the P score for Under the Silver Lake at a 6.5.
I did it. He did it again, man.
I did.
Who are
did
you?
Pretty
even?
good there. So we're going to spin the wheel here shortly, Nick, to see what movie we are reviewing next week. However, before we do that, we'd like to head over to the comments section on social media and see what the fans had to ask us that was inspired by the film. As I pull that up, Nick, I grabbed one out of here that I wanted to answer. I think, and then I'll let you go. I think we kind of already somewhat answered it. But our boy Julio says, if you don't understand what a movie is going for and you don't like it, do you reassess that opinion if something later provides an explanation? Or do you consider the movie a failure regardless, since a third-party assist was required? So, I think I already kind of answered that, but the reason that this movie went from a 4 to a 6 for me over the last couple of years is because of that. Is because of my ability to accept other explanations, including Nick's that I got tonight, which we'll go into account the next time I watch it, to be honest. But I think that it's really impressive when you see how Mitchell dived into this, like the screenwriting and the attention to detail, the props that were used that are like little kind of clues for us as the viewer that are almost impossible to get on the first viewing, are crazy. And I watched this YouTube video I was telling you about today, Nick, and the guy had the split screens of the Marilyn Monroe movies with Riley Keough's character in this movie, and it was crazy. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
And I think even if you had seen those movies from like the 50s and 60s, you wouldn't even know that because, you would be so far removed from it or whatever. So it's really cool to you just gain an appreciation for it. Now, I don't know if that means like my enjoyment of the movie necessarily goes up or down, but I do just, and Dan will be happy to hear this, but I just gain more and more respect for this film as I think about it and the more times I see it. And I think a lot of that, to answer Julio's question, does come from the other kind of critiques and things that I didn't even recognize that are kind of being pointed out to me.
I think the good thing about film criticism, and I think the good thing about like being in a community of people who love films as we are, and as we do, it offers like valuable like insight into the way that other people kind of view different films. We all have varying opinions on different things, and while it may not adjust a score in some cases necessarily, I think that it definitely can kind of completely change your tone. Like maybe when you like go through what someone has through someone else's way of viewing something, it can kind of give you a better appreciation or understanding or respect, as you said, for it, and it can help to kind of transform your thinking about it and take it a little bit of a different thing. Now, for me, like to kind of like look back at Julio's question directly, like I think it depends for me. I will qualify that question by saying that it depends entirely on how big of a tripping point it is for me. Take the movie Snowpiercer, for example, right? I hate Snowpiercer. Utterly detest it. I think it's utterly and completely terrible because I cannot buy the logic of a giant train that runs around the world on a giant track that never needs any maintenance forever and ever for eternity. I cannot buy into the logic of that, so it ruins the movie for me. Other people have a million different times explained to me like, oh, it's this, it's that, and like it's not a complicated film, guys. Bong Joon-ho is like not that deep, so it's not like this like super huge like in depth thing or like whatever. Like I get it, it's all about like the class system and like class struggles and all that kind of different stuff. But I still hate the movie. I can appreciate like all those different things about it, but I still hate it. It depends on the stumbling block for me. If it's something simple where if I just watched it and I'm like, man, I didn't really get that. And then I kind of explore that, on my own, like reading other reviews, watching other people's points of view, watching people break down certain things, and then revisit it. It can give me a better appreciation, and sometimes it can save a movie for me. Other times it can't. It just depends on how big that stumbling block is. It's as simple as that.
I get it. Did you want to throw a question out from the comment section?
Yeah, let me look here. Okay, so I will pick Nerd Revert. Jason's. I'll pick the first question because I haven't seen It Follows, so I can't rank Mitchell as a writer director because I've literally this is my only exposure to Mitchell. I have never seen It Follows. I would say as far as Andrew Garfield performances, this is probably somewhere in the middle for me. And that's not a check against his performance in this movie. I think his performance in this movie is great. I really, really do. But this is Andrew Garfield we're talking about, who has given a lot of really, really strong performances. And it's hard to check those against like this one. I don't think Andrew Garfield delivers a bad performance, period. I think across the board he is a phenomenal actor. So, but this one's probably like somewhere in the mid-level for me. You know, I like how kind of unhinged the character is at times and how just kind of on the edge of sanity he seems to be, and he seems to ride at different kind of varying intervals of the film. I think he ate the script up. I think he really loved it. I think he really loved kind of going into it. So it was really, really nice to see. But I mean, yeah, like I love him in like The Social Network. I love him in Hacksaw Ridge. I love him in everything. I mean, the dude's great. He's amazing in like literally everything he does.
Yeah, it's a really hard question. I mean, he's saying, where do you rank this for Andrew Garfield performances? I mean, I don't know that you can. I mean, they're all
good.
It's literally like 1A through
one.
Yeah, I know. It's
is there
hard
a bad
to do.
one?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think there is
honestly,
either. I don't think there is either. Even his performance in the Amazing Spider-Man movies, he's the best thing about them. He actively is like really trying his hardest, and it's not his fault that the script lets him down. You know?
Yeah, I mean, Social Network's probably his favorite of mine. You mentioned Hacksaw Ridge, Oscar nomination.
He's phenomenal in Hacksaw Ridge. I mean, that's got to be the edge for me because I mean, he's so good in that.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably like you said, middle, kind of like top 5, maybe 5 or 6.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved him as Jim Baker last year in The Eyes of Tammy Faye. I mean, the guy is unstoppable. I mean, he's literally one of the best working today, and they're all just so good. I mean, he just turns in a great performance every movie, whether the movie hits with you or not. It's hard to talk against his performance. So,
yep,
I agree with you there, man. All right, so thank you guys for the comments in the old comment section this week.
Thank you.
Now, once again, guys, if you're a patron of the show, you can join up for as little as $1. You can recommend a movie for us. We spin that old wheel at least once a month, sometimes more frequently, like we're doing right now, because we're about to spin it again. I'm going to share the screen with Nick here so he sees what the hell's going on here.
Let's do it.
That's the most recent photo I used for the Critics Association.
That looks like a photo of you, like in a cult pamphlet, like "Please join my cult, drink my Kool-Aid," or something.
Dude, how good does that beard look, though? Sorry about the audio audience. But join up on YouTube so you can see that beard.
Audio listeners, you're welcome. You don't have to see this picture. You're welcome.
So we're going to spin the wheel. Now, next week we have a blank spot where we're not going to the theater. So we're going to review whatever we land on here. If it lands on Nick, he gets to pick the movie. He did that the first week we did this, and he chose The Room, which I still have not recovered from.
Yo, we're picking it again. If I get it again, that's what we're doing again.
I'm going to end up like Tommy at the end of that movie.
Oh, yeah.
I have not gotten chosen yet, but I have a couple in mind if I do. And then if we land on the patrons, I'll pause and I'll put all the patron picks in there, and then we'll spin it again and find out what movie we're watching. All right, Nick, let's do it, man. Let's give the wheel a spin here. You ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, spin.
Now I'm seeing Gerald spin around and around and around. It's terrifying, guys. Yes!
Oh, shit. All right. Well, there you see it. Nick,
Man.
It has landed on you, my friend. Hopefully you came prepared. What movie are we watching this week and reviewing next week?
Man, it's the 2003 masterpiece by Tommy Wiseau, The Room. We're gonna give it another crack. We're bringing that score.
There has to be more time between viewings. I can't. It's too fresh. It's too fresh.
All right, fine. You know what I want to pick here. So we're just talking about Andrew Garfield, right? There's a big blind spot, as far as I'm concerned, in my Andrew Garfield viewography. I've seen a lot of his movies. I've seen most of the stuff that he's done, but I have never seen, and we've got Killers of the Flower Moon coming right around the corner. I've never seen Silence. I've never seen Scorsese's Silence with Andrew Garfield. So I was just trying to think of it like off the wall because I really didn't have anything picked aside from The Room, which Gerald won't watch again, guys. So I'm going to pick Scorsese's Silence. I'm going to pick Silence for next week because I love Andrew Garfield and I would really, really love to check it out. And like I said, it's going to get us into Scorsese mode because we got Scorsese coming very, very soon. So it'll kind of get us into Scorsese mode.
I like that pick.
And it's only 2 hours and 41 minutes, Gerald. It's not 4 hours long like The Irishman.
Guess what?
You've never seen it.
I've never seen that either.
There you go, baby. There you go.
Only Scorsese, to my knowledge, that I've never seen. So that's a blind spot for me also.
Good. I'm glad. Wow. I'm glad that I can fill a blind spot for both of us then. But like I said, I know I've never seen it. It's like one of my biggest blind spots with him in terms of Scorsese, in terms of Garfield. I mean, it's got Adam Driver in it too, Liam Neeson.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'd love to kind of thinking about Jason's question. Right. I'd love to see where this ranks in terms of Garfield performances as well. So Garfield Garfield Derber Hater.
What's that?
I can't talk anymore. I can't talk anymore, ladies and gentlemen. You know what else was really good? Like, thinking of his performances and stuff, because I was like looking through his filmography and stuff. Tick Tick Boom. Did you ever see Tick Tick Boom?
Yeah.
He's real good in that too. He's real good in everything he does. So I'm expecting big things from him in Silence. And plus it's Scorsese, so even more so. So yeah, I'm excited, man. I'm really excited to check that out.
Let's give it a go, man. I've never seen that one either. So next week, guys, we will be reviewing Silence. Do you have the year on it there, Nick? What year did it come
2016, according to the IMDb.
2016 Silence from Martin Scorsese.
Yep.
Will be our retro roulette review next week, chosen by Nick. I still have not had the damn wheel land on me. I had a couple good ones ready for you, buddy. Shit.
I don't want to tell you this, but I paid the people that made the roulette wheel website. It'll never land on you.
You did? All right, well, that makes sense then.
And if the Patriots get picked again, it'll never land on Angels with the Dirty Faces either.
You're paying them all off. All right, guys. Well, that was our retro review for Under the Silver Lake, and then we got more Andrew Garfield next week as we will cover Silence.
Nick, baby.
I love you, man. And then get ready for Dumb Money. Nick is very excited for that film. We'll be covering that one.
I already told you 2 out of 10. That's early score reveal before I've even watched it. I'm gonna hate it. I don't care how well it's made. I am going to hate it.
Stop.
To hate it.
Open mind. Open mind. Go with the theater. Open mind.
Gonna hate it.
All right.
Gonna hate it.
I've seen mixed reviews on it too, which makes me kind of excited. I love when a movie's split.
Gonna hate it.
It's like, where are you gonna fall? All right. All right, man. I love you. Congratulations on the Giants. I'll see you next week, man.